Hey, what's up guys, Stefan here. Today we're looking at some of my favorite sounds to use when creating R&B. Sound selection is king, even before mixing in my eyes. Get your sound selection right and the mixing process becomes a whole lot simpler. As they say, you cannot polish a turd. This is a two-part series and is broken down into multiple sections, with part 1 looking at synths, synth basses, synth pads, synth keys or FM keys in this case, and synth leads in that order, but feel free to use the chapters to jump around and find what's most relevant to you. And of course, links to every sound showcased in this video can be found down in the description below. Okay, let's jump in. We're starting with synth basses, and for my synth basses there's a sound I go for every single time, and it's what I like to call the classic analog bass sound. And you'll find this type of sound on most analog synthesizers as presets, however it's dead easy to create if not. It uses the sawtooth wave for those rich harmonics that cut through even when playing down in a lower octave, and often uses a triangle or sine wave in the second or third oscillator to round out the sound. It's the perfect sound for those deep and bouncy bass lines that we love. Here's a few of my go-to presets, 3 paid and 1 free. Number 1, Dave Land from Super 8. Perfect for that bouncy bass line. Number 2, A-Train from Monarch. I like to use this one when I want the bass to be a bit more melodic. Cool. Number 3, CK Late Again from Repro 1. And you'll hear that this one is a bit more aggressive with a bit more tops and attack. And finally, for a free option, one aptly named Classic Analog Bass from Logic's stock retro synth. Cool, so we have 5 different shades of the same color right here. Let's do the same for synth keys. Now, for the most part, when it comes to keys, I'm using sample-based pianos or EPs. But when I want to take it back just a little, I like to use FM synth keys for that classic Yamaha DX7 FM Tyne sound. Now, this sound is based off the Fender Rhodes, and we'll look at the Fender Rhodes in part 2 when we're looking at sample-based instruments, but the Fender Rhodes is an instrument that had much use in the 60s and 70s. However, then came the Yamaha DX7 that through many of its patches sought to emulate this sound through synthesis. We ended up with a much brighter sound, and this sound was used a ton in the 80s and 90s, and we still have some use cases for it within R&B here today. I know I still use the sound myself. You should be able to find this type of sound on any of your FM synthesizers, but again, I'm going to show you 3 that I love and use from paid synths, and 1 you can find in Logic for free and that I use quite often. Number 1, HS-DY7 Add Pad version 2 from Zebra 2. This sound is just plain beautiful. The sustain on this thing, it's heavenly. One of my favorite sounds, hands down. Number 2, we have Glassy EP from FM8. This sound here from the FM8 is a little bit more chimey or glassy, but also has a nice sustain. The next is called DX7 EP, just straight up calling it DX7, that's what I like to see, and it's from Retro Machines. This one compared to the previous 2 is a little fuller, has a bit more body to it, but of course with all of these sounds we're able to tweak them to taste. That's the beauty of synthesis. Today we're just looking at my favorite presets for my favorite types of sounds. And finally, for a free option, we have the 80s FM piano from Logic. They actually layered two ES2 sounds together for this one with a phaser on the master bus, but I really like the result, and this is another FM tine that I frequently use. Cool, so let's move on to Synth Pads. If you've been watching my channel for a while, you will know that I'm really into the pitched sine wave. As I said in one of my videos last year, it's the quintessential R&B sound. And in that video I did showcase quite a few, but since then I have found and have been able to create quite a few more, and it's actually what inspired this mini series. Let me know down in the comment section below if you're finding it helpful. So the pitch sine does what it says on the tin. It uses the sine wave and an envelope assigned to pitch to glide up to the pitch of the notes you are playing from that of a lower pitch, minus 12 semitones, an octave. So here are some of my favorites. Number 1, smooth glide from 25. Now 25 was only available for a limited time. If you were a subscriber to the channel at the end of 2021, then you should have seen my video on it and hopefully downloaded it at the time. If not, don't worry, we'll look at some more options in a moment. But before we do that, owners of 25, load up Smooth Glide and just try changing the B side of the instrument. You'll quickly find you have yourself a whole bunch of different pitch sine flavors. I play around with this a ton and I've come up with some great sounding pitch sines. And of course you can dive deeper into the instrument and tweak various aspects. Just be sure to save your sounds as presets for later use. Cool, number 2, and for everyone else, STW Kit 4 Drop Chords Pitch Pad Serum. It's a mouthful, but it's from Soul Trap Wonderland, STW, and it's a preset pack for Serum. This sound is magnifique. However, this sound is also strangely out by 4 semitones. So I have a patch saved with a transposed MIDI effect that lowers the pitch by 4 semitones. Other than that, like I said, it's a beautiful sound, and in fact this pack has a number of great sounds for R&B. But we'll leave this here. As I said, I have a whole video on these sounds, and unfortunately I don't think Logic has any stock presets for this type of sound. But of course it can be made. But that's not what this video is about, so let's move on. Lastly, I want to look at some of my favorite synth leads. For the most part, I just use Logic stock sounds here, surprisingly, and you'll find these in the library under synthesizers and leads. But outside of Logic lies my current favorite lead, and that's the HS Scratch Sine from Zebra 2. This sound is delicious, absolutely filthy. Not all synth leads have the mod wheel assignment for modulation, but it's a must. It's a must when it comes to R&B. If you want that flavor, you want to get on that mod wheel and you want to make sure your synthesizer has an assignment for that. The sounds you've heard today I've been using for a while, and in fact I use them throughout my Producing For series here on YouTube. So if you want to see how these sounds sound in full R&B tracks with vocals, then be sure to check out the playlist on screen right now. Or alternatively, if you want to sample the loops I've made with these sounds, then check out my Producing For sample pack with MIDI. And of course, if you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and comment down below if you found it useful or have any questions. I've been Stefan, and as always, happy beat making.